There's a painful lesson life teaches all great men and women: being too friendly, too open, too generous with your presence costs you more than you realize. You think you're being kind. You think you're building loyalty. You think being available will earn you love. But the truth is this: what's always available gets ignored, and what's too accessible gets used. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most overlooked truths of Stoic philosophy. If you don't protect your energy, people will drain it. If you don't limit access, people will misuse it. We'll reflect through the lens of 5 powerful iconic: Mike Tyson, Whitney Houston, Kanye West, Chadwick Boseman, and Michael Jackson. These aren't just celebrities. They were forces of nature, gifted, generous, and wide open to the world. And in return, they were taken for granted, not because they weren't strong, not because they weren't talented, but because they gave too much without demanding enough respect in return. This video isn't about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's about knowing that not everyone deserves your time, your space, your truth, or your heart. The Stoics didn't teach us to be cold. They taught us to guard the soul, to move with purpose, to never throw pearls before swine. As Epictetus said, keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern. Being friendly is not the problem. Being over-accessible is. Because when people feel entitled to your presence, they stop valuing your absence. So if you've ever found yourself asking, "Why do people take me for granted? Why do I give so much and get so little back? Why does my kindness always seem to cost me?" Then this message is for you. Stick with me until the end of this video. You'll walk away with a new mindset, a sharper sense of boundaries, and the wisdom to protect what truly matters: your peace, your purpose, and your presence. Comment below: "My energy is not free." Because from this moment forward, you're not just watching content, you're reclaiming your value. Let's begin. Number 1, the illusion of constant availability. Have you ever noticed this strange pattern? The more kind, generous, and available you are to people, the less they seem to value you. It's a hard truth that many learn too late. The very people you help the most, the ones you support without hesitation, are often the first to treat you like you're optional. Not because you lack worth, not because you made a mistake, but because you unknowingly fell into a subtle and dangerous trap: the illusion of constant availability. Mike Tyson lived this lesson in the most brutal way possible. In his prime, he was not only the most feared man in boxing, he was one of the most generous. He gave freely. He opened his doors and his bank accounts. He let people in: friends, strangers, leeches, and hangers-on. He thought his openness would buy loyalty. What it bought instead was exploitation. Tyson's generosity was mistaken for weakness. His accessibility was viewed as naivety. And when the fame dimmed, when the fortune dried up, the crowd vanished. What he learned after hitting rock bottom was this: when you're always available, people assume you have nothing better to do. When you give without limits, they start to believe they're entitled to your giving. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." If your only ambition is to be liked, to be needed, to be constantly present, then your worth in the eyes of others will slowly decline, and they'll sense it. Your need for approval, your discomfort with silence, your fear of walking away. Over time, your influence erodes. Tyson was admired as a fighter, but used as a provider. His downfall wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He gave too much access to people who gave nothing back. Only in retreat, through discipline, withdrawal, and rebuilding, did he reclaim a sense of self-respect. And that's where the Stoic lesson lives. Kindness is not weakness, but kindness without clarity, that's self-betrayal. When you're always the one to check in, always the one to forgive, always the one to say yes, you're no longer seen as strong. You're seen as someone who has no boundaries. People begin to assume that your time is free, your energy is bottomless, and your presence is guaranteed. They stop being grateful. They start being entitled. It's like giving someone a gift every weekend. The first time it touches their heart, the second time they smile. By the third, it's routine. By the fourth, if you don't show up with anything, they're disappointed. Not because you did something wrong, but because you trained them to expect it. In a world that runs on attention and burns through loyalty, Stoicism offers this reminder. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Epictetus. You don't owe anyone constant access. You don't need to chase conversations, over-explain your silence, or apologize for protecting your peace. The strongest move you can make isn't shouting your worth. It's removing your presence long enough for them to feel the absence. And that's the truth Mike Tyson had to learn the hard way. It's not coldness, it's clarity. So if you're tired of being used, overlooked, or taken for granted, remember this. Kindness is not about how much you give. It's about how well you protect what you give. Set your boundaries. Withdraw when necessary. Let your silence speak louder than your availability. Because the moment you stop giving everything to everyone, you'll finally start attracting those who actually respect what you offer. Number 2, your energy has a price. Let's get one thing straight. Your time, your energy, and your attention are not free. They're not endless, they're not disposable, and they're not owed to everyone. These are currencies. And like all currencies, the more freely you give them away, the less valuable they appear, not to you, but to the people who receive them. That's not cynicism. That's human psychology. People don't treasure what's always available. We value what feels rare, what's protected, what comes with intention and boundaries. This isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. Because if you don't assign value to your presence, others will assign it for you, and usually they'll undervalue it. Take Whitney Houston. She was brilliant, powerful, and filled with warmth. But Whitney's biggest strength, her open, loving heart, became her greatest vulnerability. She gave herself away too easily to those who didn't earn her. She kept people close who didn't protect her, who didn't uplift her. People who saw her kindness as access, not as grace. And slowly, she was drained. Her generosity became expectation. Her emotional openness became exploitation. The people around her didn't help her rise. They clung to her while she fell. Why? Because she made herself too available, too accessible, too forgiving. And here's the Stoic truth. Energy without boundaries is self-betrayal. Marcus Aurelius warned, the approval of the crowd is a weak foundation to build your dignity upon. And yet, we often live like it's the opposite. We give our energy to those who don't return it. We extend ourselves, hoping that maybe, just maybe, it will buy us love, appreciation, or loyalty. We confuse kindness with compensation. If I give enough, I'll be enough. But that's not love. That's emotional bargaining. The Stoics had a term for this, prokinesis, the act of bowing too low, too often, and for the wrong reasons. When you become the one who always gives, who never sets limits, who's constantly on call, you become forgettable. Not because you're not valuable, but because you've taught others that your energy is always on sale. Think about it. When was the last time you truly appreciated the water you drink every day? It's essential. It sustains you, but it's always there, so you stop noticing. Meanwhile, a rare bottle of wine, aged perfectly, only opened on special occasions. That gets respect. That gets admiration. That's the power of scarcity, boundaries, and intention. Whitney Houston never needed to prove her worth. She didn't have to be everything for everyone. But because she gave too much to the wrong people, her light dimmed in the hands of those who didn't know how to carry it. And you, if you keep giving your time, your advice, your forgiveness to people who never reciprocate, you'll find yourself in the same place. emotionally bankrupt, quietly resented, and painfully invisible. So here's the question. If your energy were money, would you keep spending it on people who never invest back? Respect isn't about how much you give. It's about how well you protect. And the people who are truly worth your time, they'll understand that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. This is what Stoicism teaches. Protect your peace, protect your power, and above all, protect your energy. Because once you stop overextending, over-explaining, and over-offering, you stop begging for respect and start commanding it. And just like that, your life begins to shift. Number 3, from approval to authority, reclaiming your energy through Stoic self-respect. There comes a moment in every person's journey when you have to decide, do I want to be liked or do I want to be respected? That's the dividing line between approval and authority. And the transition begins with a single, honest question. If I wasn't afraid to lose this person, this opportunity, or their approval, what would I stop doing immediately? That answer reveals everything. That's your clarity, and it's where your real power begins. You see, approval is a trap. It makes you give too much, too fast. You overshare, you over-explain. You stretch yourself emotionally for people who don't return that depth, not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep down, you're afraid of losing connection, being misunderstood, or not being accepted. Just look at Kanye West, also known as Ye. Early in his career, Kanye was bold, expressive, and desperate to be heard. He was vulnerable in interviews, generous with collaborations, and accessible to fans and critics alike. At first, this earned him admiration, but over time, his emotional transparency became a liability. The more he gave, the more the public took. His openness became entertainment. His opinions became targets. His vulnerability became ammunition. And that's the truth many never realize until it's too late. When you give too much of yourself to people who haven't earned that access, they won't see it as generosity. They'll see it as weakness. So how do you shift? You stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening to understand you. You stop walking into rooms where your presence is overlooked. You stop over-delivering for people who only ever earned the bare minimum. Not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Because once you recognize your own value, you no longer need to beg others to see it. That's where Stoic philosophy becomes your compass. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, only what you do." That's the foundation of peace. When your actions are aligned with your values, not their approval, you enter a place of quiet command. It's important to remember, your energy is not infinite. Your attention is not disposable. Your emotional bandwidth is not meant to be spent on people who never invest back. You are not a machine. And if you keep leaking your energy into people who deplete you, you'll have nothing left for what truly matters. The Stoics called this the inner citadel. Your mind, your peace, your spirit. That space must be guarded. Because the people you allow into that space don't just influence your mood, they shape your direction. But here's why we struggle to let go. We confuse history with alignment. Just because someone has been part of your life for years doesn't mean they're meant to walk with you into your next chapter. Some people are not growth partners. They're emotional habits, patterns, loops you keep replaying because they feel familiar, even when they no longer serve your highest good. And often, their resentment won't show up as obvious hate. It'll look like constant crisis, like chaotic energy, like guilt trips and emotional tug-of-wars. And worst of all, you'll start calling that chaos connection. That's the danger. True respect begins when you draw the line, when you stop performing emotional labor for people who refuse to evolve. If your time were money, would you give it away to people who never reciprocate? If not, then ask, why do it with your attention? With your peace? With your soul? Here's the high-value mindset shift. If they don't respect your time, they won't respect your growth. From this place of discernment, not bitterness, you move from seeking approval to commanding authority. And once you do, everything changes. From how they treat you to how you finally begin to treat yourself. Number 4. Selective bonds, strategic energy, stoic clarity in a world that takes until you break. If they do not respect your time, they will not respect your growth. If they do not respect your silence, they will not respect your wisdom. The Stoics understood this with razor-sharp clarity. They were not against kindness, but they were absolutely clear about one thing: selectivity, because emotional chaos is contagious. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make you better." That wasn't just advice, it was a survival strategy. And in today's world, it's more necessary than ever. We live in an age of noise, access, and emotional exposure, but the people you allow into your energy field shape your life, sometimes in quiet, corrosive ways. Just look at Michael Jackson. He gave the world everything: his talent, his heart, his vulnerability. He offered gifts, access, and endless emotional availability. And what did it cost him? Peace, privacy, dignity. He was manipulated, misunderstood, and falsely accused. The more he gave, the more people felt entitled to take. Until eventually, his generosity became his erasure. This is the hard truth. When you constantly pour yourself into those who don't pour back, you don't just burn out, you disappear. That's why boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They protect what is sacred. It's time to stop explaining your standards to people committed to misunderstanding them. Stop trying to win loyalty in places where you're merely tolerated. Stop bleeding your energy into relationships that thrive only when you're sacrificing. You don't need to burn bridges. You simply need to rise, elevate, until their hands can no longer reach what you've become. And when you do, something powerful happens. Your mornings start with clarity. Your conversations deepen. Your ideas return. You stop overgiving out of fear. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. And most importantly, you remember who you are. You realize that your kindness was never the problem. Your lack of selectivity was. You were trying to be liked, chosen, accepted. But approval is a fragile currency, and Stoicism teaches us to trade in something far more valuable: virtue, clarity, and restraint. People don't respect what is free. They respect what is rare. They respond to energy that is filtered, not flung in every direction. So when you start moving differently, when your presence becomes deliberate and your time becomes intentional, the world changes how it engages you. You don't have to demand respect. You embody it. You don't chase. You attract. Not through noise, but through discernment. If someone tries to guilt trip you for having limits, remember this: only the people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries will resent your decision to finally create them. That's not your problem. That's your liberation. Because the most powerful version of you isn't tired, isn't drained, isn't performing for applause. The most powerful version of you is selective, silent, sharp. The people-pleasing trap is one of the most subtle prisons you'll ever live in. You shrink. You smile when it hurts. You laugh at jokes that dull your soul. And slowly your voice disappears, not just to others, but to yourself. But Stoicism draws a line. Do what is right, not what is easy. Speak with clarity, not for applause. That's when your presence starts to shift. That's when you walk into a room and you don't need to say a word, because your energy already speaks. And if someone says you've changed, say thank you. That's not betrayal, that's growth, that's power. Now drop one word in the comments: boundaries, if you're reclaiming your energy, and hit subscribe. We're not building hype, we're building clarity, quiet strength, modern stoicism, and it starts with you. Number 5, make your presence rare. Let's be brutally honest. You train people how to treat you. Every time you say yes when your gut says no, every time you respond to late-night messages you never should have answered, and every time you make yourself constantly available, you're sending a quiet but powerful signal. My time doesn't matter. My energy is free. My standards are flexible. And in today's world, nothing loses value faster than what feels always available. The Stoics warned us, what is rare is precious. That doesn't just apply to diamonds or treasures. It applies to you, your attention, your energy, your peace. Think of Chadwick Boseman, humble, generous, always present for fans, co-workers, and collaborators. He gave endlessly, even while secretly battling cancer. His silence was not weakness, it was strength. But here's the tragedy. People took his quiet dedication for granted. They mocked his weight loss. They speculated. They didn't respect the man behind the silence until it was too late. And that's what happens when you give consistently, quietly, without boundaries. You become expected, not appreciated. You become routine, not revered. You want to be respected? Then make your presence rare. Let people earn your time. Let your absence teach what your words never could. This isn't about being arrogant. It's about developing emotional discipline. Just like elite athletes don't exhaust themselves in every game, high-value individuals conserve their energy for what matters. Being too accessible is not kindness, it's leakage. It trains people to think you have no limits. And when people believe you'll always show up, they stop showing up for you. In a culture addicted to reaction and immediacy, silence is power. Tactical silence, selective availability. These aren't cold behaviors. They're commanding behaviors. The Stoics mastered this art centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Withdraw into yourself. The mind adapted to solitude becomes stronger. In leadership, in friendship, in love, you should never be the person they expect to always say yes." Because here's the truth. What is easy to reach is easy to ignore. What is always speaking is easy to tune out. People remember what feels rare. They respect what feels earned. And they chase what is not guaranteed. This applies to every area of your life. In business, it's the CEO who's hardest to access that commands the room. In romance, it's the one who knows how to pull back that keeps curiosity alive. In friendship, it's the person with strong boundaries that earns lasting loyalty. Let's take it deeper. Silence is not passive. It's active power. When someone disrespects you, your silence says, "I saw that. I noted it. You're not worth my peace." When gossip swirls, your silence whispers, "I don't drop to your level." When chaos demands your reaction, your stillness communicates, "I am not part of this storm." That's presence. That's gravity. That's modern stoicism. So the next time you feel the urge to prove, to explain, to defend, pause. Return to center. Ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being afraid of being forgotten? Because approval built on over-availability leads to invisibility. But respect, that's built in absence, in standards, in stillness. Chadwick Boseman lived this. Quiet, focused, purposeful, and though many didn't see his depth while he lived, his silence now echoes louder than noise ever could. So start protecting your presence. Let it be a gift, not a guarantee. And if you're with me on this journey of rising into quiet strength, drop the word presence in the comments. Then hit subscribe, because we're building not just knowledge here, but calm authority, stoic discipline, and real inner power. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just have to own your presence.